Treasure marks, engraving. Treasure signs, round-shaped carvings, are signs that indicate that there are tombs or graves found in most regions. Engraved marks were used sometimes as well, and sometimes as a target. There are quite different solutions to the round carvings made for grave purposes. The depth and size of the carving are looked at, such as the large carving, the number of carvings, the carving within the carving, the channels next to the carving, and the number of lines and carvings. The distance between the carved marks on the same rock is very important. The vertical carving, chisel, with a carved inner wall, all of this changes the meanings. The smallest detail to note is that even though the rounded carvings look like round, most of them are not round. They are slightly triangular in shape. To understand this, you have to touch the sign instead of looking. When you touch the inner part of the engraving, which you see as round when you look at it, you will understand that it has made a triangle. In this part, the side you need to go should be the deepest side of the triangle. But if there is a chisel or a small fork on the forehead of the carving, that is, on the inner wall, here is the direction, and go straight ahead. You will climb onto the grave. Do not forget that each engraving sign definitely indicates where the tomb is. You will find this by doing a review. Solutions of round engraving. Marks number of engraving on the rock with more than one engraving number. You should first look at the number of carvings and whether there are chicks on the side of the carving. If there are chicks, it gives direction. In addition, the chisel marks can correspond to the number of graves. If there are 2 carvings, the side of the small carving should be looked at. If there are 3 carvings, the open mouth should be looked at 7 to 9 meters by making a V mark. The 4 or above engraving number means it depends on some kind of counting system. The east side with different carvings is very important here. When there is a case in areas with 8 or 6 carvings, you should definitely pay attention to whether there are places to make a case next to the narrative rocks. These are usually in the lateral lower parts of the bedrock, where the rock that is very thin and very thin meets the soil. Carving in carving rocks or stones with carving in the carving describe that there are rooms connected to each other. These signs are mostly seen on the building stones in the grave. He tells that there is a second room here. If there is a channel in this engraving, it means that it has already given the direction. The distance to be traveled is found by measuring the channel length and calculating approximately 1 centimeter by 1 step. Lines next to the engraving. These lines located next to the engraved sign play a very important role in distance or direction. The number and length of the lines here are important. If the lines are quite complex and cross over each other, it means that the burial was made based on mystical beliefs. The zone is the enchanted zone. If there is only one channel, it means it gives direction. The way to go is the channel side. It will not be easy to estimate the distance here. Carving size. The size of the carving is directly related to the status of the tomb. The depth of carving is when it gives the depth of the grave. For example, if the carving depth is about 5 centimeters deep, you can understand that the depth of the grave here is 3.5 meters. This situation does not apply to all carvings. This size can be calculated by multiplying the engraving depth by 7. Large carvings always symbolize the great tomb. Treasure marks engraved. Round treasure signs are among the other important carvings among the round carvings, treasure marks. It is known to probably represent the tomb. They are available in different sizes and depths, but of course they are also known for their structures with different craftsmanship. These important and detailed craftsmanship are also a clue to the richness of the tomb. If we look at it from another perspective, it shows how famous the gravestones of the rich people found now are, while the gravestones of the poor people are plain and flat. It gives important clues about who it belongs to in this grave, which has an offering pit, that is, a circular engraving mark. In round carvings of treasure marks, the first thing to be considered is the width and diameter. Since this information is very important, it is the information and looking for the presence of chill marks, considering that it may be a small helper, gives real results to important searches. In another way, it should be checked whether it has been applied on any channel before. The probability of the large round pit being high and the grave being on the bedrock at the same place is an important sign. If there is no other carving pit next to this pit, the result of this means that it is the last point of the presentation carving. The carved tomb is the case where this place can be at most 12 meters in content. The area where the large offering pit is the entrance to the grave is the case if the stone rock is not located above the visible surface, but can be hidden under the ground, not exceeding a few meters. If there is no important clue indicating a direction and a distance that can help in the round pit, it is thought that the entrance direction is west or southwest. The direction of the channel usually found indicates the tomb and entrance. The important thing here is to first measure the channel length and move in the direction of the channel. The result of this is that it usually coincides with the result of the rock, and it is the case that there is a high probability of finding the entrance in the part with soil with this auxiliary sign. Of course, this situation can sometimes differ, because it is very likely to coincide with a cliff or rocky area, and it should be read carefully. If there is a small chisel carving next to the treasure marks round carving, there are some points to be considered, although the solution is not very different. In fact, it is quite similar to the normal channeled circular carving. Of course, the fine detail that needs attention is the presence of a small merk engraving, as well as the presentation engraving. Therefore, here the distance between the offering pit and the merk engraving should be measured, not a second offering carving, and progress in the direction of the merk carving is followed. Generally, the place to be reached should probably be the grave. Of course, these carvings usually lead to the land region, and the possibility of finding a grave here is very high. Sometimes it may differ depending on the different periods or the master. Treasure marks. Another important mark among round carvings is known as multiple carvings. These carvings are among the most complicated and difficult ones. The reason for this is that it has very different meanings. The first thing to do here should be to examine the large area. The reason for this is the tombs found as piles of stones around. System knowledge is very important in these multiple carvings. Generally, if there is a stream around, the north direction of that area should be followed and examined in detail. Treasure marks square engraving. Treasure marks square carving. Anatolia has a deep-rooted history that has hosted many civilizations in its structure. As a result of the work done by expert archaeologists, many square-carved figures have been found. These square carvings were sometimes made in order to put things inside the caves, and sometimes they were made to inform the location of the sarcophagi. The shape and dimensions of the square carvings reveal the quality of the valuable materials in the sarcophagus. Large square carvings that keep their mystery and are placed in secret places are of great importance in terms of treasure hunting. However, even if some of the carved square carvings characterize the tomb, there are not many ornaments. For this reason, the square carvings provide information about the structure of the valuable materials found in the sarcophagus. In terms of treasure hunting, the square engraving mark usually points to the male grave. In the area where the square carving is located, the grave should not be sought in remote areas. Mostly, the tomb is within an area of approximately 100 m2. These square carvings sometimes point to the rock tomb. It has often been observed that sarcophagi were found in the rock tombs in the area hidden with Khorasan. The solutions of square carvings are the same as solutions of round carvings. Where there are square carvings, there is no need for an auxiliary sign. There is no inscription or record of Armenian historians showing that another treasure mark was found in the area where the square carvings were found. Square mark or square engraving, if it is built regularly on the rock, burial chambers can be found easily according to the measurements of these squares. There are two forms of square carvings. These square carvings are made either by drawing or carving on the rock. The square carvings drawn and engraved are in horizontal or vertical position. Horizontal square engraving solution in treasure signs. If this sign is made on a rock, its solution is quite simple. The grave carving is under the ground floor. This soil is located in the room or rock under the ground. If the drawing area is in a rocky area, there is a chamber tomb. In horizontal square carvings, the tomb was mostly made to the north entrance of the rock and was closed with a horizon. In this respect, research is carried out by pounding the northern part of the rock with the help of a hammer or stone. The area where the void sound comes from the strokes made constitutes the entrance of the rock tomb. After the gap is determined, the area that is plastered later can be easily detected by closing it differently from the main rock. The entrance can be opened with the help of a pickaxe or a sledgehammer. According to the researchers, the rock tombs were blown up after burials centuries ago. For this reason, it is very difficult to obtain anything materially from these regions that were destroyed centuries ago. However, these settlements, which are described as steep cliffs and mountains that people do not visit, still keep their mystery. Vertical square engraving solution in treasure sign in research with treasure hunting, vertical rock carvings and solutions in horizontal rock carvings are quite different. Vertical square carvings mostly indicate male graves. If this type of carving is detected, the chamber tomb should not be sought, because the tomb or sarcophagus is about 2 meters below the soil floor under the rock where the carving was made. Long ago, the way in which the vertical square carvings are made, the quality and the diligence in my play determine the value of the sarcophagus. The priceless value of jewelry found in a vertical square carving that has not been engraved is quite high. Since someone who was buried centuries ago was buried with his wealth and precious items, the value of these antiques is very high. Solution of multiple square carvings in treasure sign. The presence of too many square carvings indicates that the location was a family grave. In this regard, if the area where square carvings are detected, if research is made on large rocky areas, a rock tomb will be found. There are materials with significant material value in an unopened rock tomb. The entrance of the rock tomb faces north. These tombs have preserved their mystery, since the entrance to the tomb is covered with horizon, which will not deteriorate even after centuries after the sarcophagi are placed. Many multiple square carvings are encountered in Anatolia. However, archaeological excavations have shown that these burial chambers were destroyed long ago. What to do if square carvings are found? On the treasure sign, if a square carving is detected in an area that is out of sight and people rarely visit, the 100-meter area should be investigated thoroughly. If there is no square carved rock grave, it must be determined that it symbolizes my rooms to be excavated. After these determinations, the area should be scanned and the excavation should be carried out after obtaining legal permissions. The jewelry obtained from this excavation are at a level that will increase the living standards of the person. Treasure marks, cross treasure signs. The cross, in treasure hunting, the cross mark mostly points to Byzantine tombs. In the researches, if the sign of the cross is embroidered and made in the form of relief, it is an indication that the grave of a church priest is nearby. Likewise, finely embroidered cross signs are mostly indicative of the grave or cellar. Found in the region, the high number of crosses is characterized by the number of tombs in the region. The meaning of the cross in the sign of the treasure in researches. Many cross signs are found in Anatolia. However, under these cross signs, only the embossed and embroidered ones lie rich. Other simple crosses in the form of crosses indicate simple tombs in the area. These simple cross signs originated from religious rituals. However, in the wooded areas, the reliefs of the cross on a rock or cave entrance prove the presence of the treasure found in the area. The sign of the cross is an engraving usually used in the tombs of the rulers of churches or monasteries, which are holy places. While sometimes the cross sign alone is sufficient for the purpose of detecting the hoard, sometimes the location of this treasure is determined with other cross signs found in the region. Solution of the cross. Sign if the rules of treasure hunting are examined, the logic is often the same in solving the treasure. However, if one of the arms in the cross symbol in the cross sign is long in solving the treasure mark, research should be done in this direction, and the masonry and cave entrances in this area should be checked. If the cross sign on the hoard is placed at the entrance of a cave, a rock grave should be searched here. There is probably an entrance hidden in the cave towards the north of the rootstock where it is located. Although this entrance was unnaturally covered with khorasan and it was likened to a structure of the main rock, this structure was separated from the bedrock in time due to rain, nature, and earthquakes. Likewise, if the cave entrance is solidly made and there are no cracks, the surrounding of the rootstock is examined. With the help of a sledgehammer or hammer, the northern part of the cave is beaten. There is probably a rock tomb in the part where the void sounds. With the help of a hilti or a sledgehammer, this bedrock is accessed. If the cross is made in relief on the rock in a hidden area, this time it is checked whether the relief is inward or outward. If one of the arms of the cross is short, the long arm measurement is made with the help of a caliper. The area where the cross sign looks is examined, and in these measurements, 1 meter length per 1 millimeter is considered. If the difference in length covers an area of 10 centimeter, then the grave found covers an area of 100 square meters. Looking at the long arm of the cross, if excavation is made in the piled area different from the soil structure, the cellar hidden here will be discovered. Anyway, the valuable items to be found in such a beautiful sign are proof that the treasure has kept its mystery despite centuries. The treasure determined with this point is in the nature of wealth that will spend human life in existence. What to do if the cross sign is detected, especially in an area where people are not present? A cross sign was made secretly and was discovered by anyone, and the entrance of the cellar or chamber tomb is determined by making appropriate measurements. Subsequently, space is scanned with detectors and gold and silver. If the device has determined the presence of space and gold appropriately, legal permissions are obtained for excavation in the area. Treasure unearthed in the presence of expert archaeologists and officials will enable a person to live in wealth throughout his life.